Get ready, Staten Island. It's time to celebrate 5 years of Ferry Hawks baseball.
This week, come out to the ballpark as the Ferry Hawks welcome in the Hagerstown Flying Boxcars at Staten Island University Hospital Community Park for a homestand on June 10th. For a 5-game series as the Ferry Hawks welcome in the Hagerstown Flying Boxcars. Individual game tickets start at just $12.
Visit ferryhawks.com now to lock in your seats. The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Stone Zone. While the Washington political establishment is literally melting down over President Donald Trump's appointment of Bill Pulte, the current head of the Federal Housing and Finance Administration, also the chairman of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the two government mortgage agencies, to now serve as the Director of National Intelligence, stepping into the shoes of Tulsi Gabbard, the former 4-term Congresswoman, former member of the House Intelligence Committee, who served in that position, now leaving because of a tragic health crisis regarding her husband. You see, the intelligence agencies like the CIA, the people who lied to us about the murder of President John F. Kennedy, the people who lied to us about the attack on the Tonkin Bay to justify the war in Vietnam, the people who lied about the Iraq having weapons of mass destruction to start a war there that killed tens of thousands of Americans and hundreds of thousands of Iraqis, based solely on a lie. The people who lied to us about the Russian collusion hoax and the idea that the Russians attempted to interfere in the 2026 elections. The same agency that lied to us about the origins of the COVID-19 virus. They're now deeply upset that having, in some ways, driven Tulsi Gabbard from office, although I think in her case, she was under constant attack from the CIA because she declassified the Russia collusion documents, proving that Russia was a fraud. And she declassified the documents pertaining to the impeachment of Donald Trump. She proved that was a fraud too. And the three major witnesses involved, the cute little brothers who were in the, I guess they were in the army, the Vindman brothers, they were lying. The CIA operative posing as a whistleblower, Eric Cialamella, which now been proven that he was lying. It was a constant attack on her. They really stepped up the attack on her when she was directed by the President of the United States to look into these electronic voting machines and whether they could be hacked, whether they were secure, and whether they had been hacked in the 2020 election. It's at that point that the respected journalist Catherine Herridge reported that Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence, and her entire staff, including the working group studying the integrity of the elections that was directed at the direction, it was formed at the direction of President Donald Trump, was being spied on by the Central Intelligence Agency. So there's a war going on between our intelligence agencies and some folks who want things covered up. I mean, after all, if you were using that electronic voting technology to rig foreign elections in states around the globe, would you like that exposed? I see where they're coming from. So instead of appointing some CIA simp, some stooge who would continue the cover-up, President Donald Trump appointed the Director of National Housing and the Chairman of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, Bill Pulte. Now, Bill Pulte is a very young, very smart, very tough, very capable guy. He built a huge fortune. Now, it's interesting. He is the scion of the famous Pulte home building family. He has, I believe, 14 brothers and sisters. But the way their father's will worked is that they did not get their $15 million inheritance until they first went out in the free market and made $15 million. So these people were not handed their wealth. They had to earn their wealth. Bill Pulte is one of the smartest financial analysts I know, and he's extraordinarily capable. And more importantly, he's extraordinarily loyal to President Donald J. Trump. There's still a number of things we don't know enough about. For example, the origins of the COVID-19 vaccination, how exactly that happened. Havana syndrome. This is when our embassy in Havana was hit with some kind of ray, some kind of electronic ray that made everyone there sick. CIA keeps telling you it was a coincidence. I think not. And then there is the big enchilada, that 2020 election. How is it that 881 million people voted for Joe Biden? How is it that more people voted in the state of Pennsylvania than are registered to vote? How is it that more people voted in the Orange County, California than are registered to vote, just as an example? How is it that 300,000 printed ballots that were supposedly mailed in but had never been folded in half and thus were never mailed popped in out of nowhere in Georgia, Detroit, and elsewhere, all at the same time? The American people want answers. There are some in our intelligence agencies and within the government who don't want answers. Yeah, Tulsi Gabbard fired 37, not fired, but took away the security clearance of 37 holdovers from the Obama and Biden administration. It's amazing how many of them who signed the letter, and with 51 former or current intelligence officers claim that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. We now know today, thanks to the crusading reporting of the New York Post and my good friend, what's her name over there? Melinda Devine. We know far, far differently. Also, the great book put out by MarcoPolo.org will prove to you that is. So Miranda Devine nailed this for the New York Post, and we now know otherwise. But it's amazing to see people like Senator Tom Cotton of Arizona attacking the appointment of Pulte as unqualified. Let me put it this way. Bill Pulte and Senator Cotton should both take an IQ test. I know who would come out much, much higher. Tom Cotton actually thinks we should do away entirely with the Office of Defense Intelligence or National Intelligence, and that we should shift all of the declassification authority over to the CIA, which means you would never learn anything. Again, the same people who covered up the murder of John Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, and Martin Luther King, the same people who died about the Tonkin Bay attack to start the war in Vietnam, the same people who have lied to us about UFOs for some long period of time. They wanted a stooge in there. They wanted a yes man. They wanted someone who would cover up for the deep state. They particularly didn't want anyone who would expose anything about the 3 attempted assassinations on the life of Donald Trump. Instead, they got an excellent appointment. Someone tough, someone capable, someone untied to the mistakes of the past, and someone who's loyal to the President of the United States. So when you're watching TV tonight or tomorrow morning, when you see all these career politicians attacking Bill Pulte's appointment, saying that he's unqualified, take a good look at them. Most of them are unqualified to be in public office, in my opinion. Interestingly enough, being the ultimate political junkie, I've been watching the early primary results, which suggest that a Trump-backed Republican, Steve Hilton, is in a strong position to advance to November's runoff for governor. Now here, however, don't get your hopes too high. They have in California what's called the jungle primary system. That's in which they no longer have party primaries to choose their candidates, but every candidate of every party, or no party at all, runs in one major first-round election. That election has one real Republican, Steve Hilton. I think there's a minor county sheriff who's a Republican, but he's not much of a candidate. There are, however, multiple big-name Democrats in that race, and therefore the top 2 vote-getters, probably likely to be Hilton on the basis of his getting the Republican base, and one of the Democrats will then move to round 2. The problem is that in round 2, all of those Democrats are likely to coalesce around the Democrat candidate, and sadly, Democrats continue to be extraordinarily outnumbered in the Golden State. Hilton, a former Fox News host, campaigned on cutting regulations, lowering gas prices, fixing schools, cracking down on crime, and fighting fraud. His showing is notable in a state where Democrats have dominated statewide politics for years. He's doing extraordinarily well enough, I think, to make the runoff. The problem will come after the runoff when the Democrats presumably unite. The results also signal frustration with California's status quo after years of high costs, homelessness, drug addiction, crime concerns, wildfire failures, and one-party Democrat rule. I can't think of any other state other than perhaps New York that is ready to move away from one-party control. In the city of Los Angeles, Mayor Karen Bass, by the way, she says publicly her two political heroes are Mao Zedong and Fidel Castro, seems to be headed to a runoff after falling short of the 50% majority. You see, that works is in the first election, if anyone gets 50%, they are elected. If not, the two top vote getters, regardless of party, run. Now, in this particular case, I believe the governorship is not nonpartisan. Early results showed Bass, an incumbent, with just 34.8%, with outsider Republican Spencer Pratt at 30.4%. When you consider that the Republican registration in the city of Los Angeles is only about 18%, you see that Spencer Pratt is getting almost twice as many voters as there are registered Republicans. There's a third candidate in the race, Councilwoman Nithya Raman, and she is a candidate of the left. So the odds seem to be pretty good that those votes would shift to Bass in the runoff. But I will say this, that Spencer Pratt has put on an extraordinarily clever and spirited campaign. You see, he's just an average guy whose home was destroyed in the Palisade fire. He has run a law and order campaign using really clever and entertaining AI viral ads and attacks on City Hall's failures to do anything after the fire. He outraised Bass and posed the first serious challenge against far-left rule from Los Angeles in generations. The takeaways from these initial results is clear. Even in deep blue California, Trump-style outsider campaigns are breaking through. This shows why we must be competitive and run serious candidates everywhere. We cannot give up the battlefield anyplace. Candidates of common sense, whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent, need to get into this fight. Our country is too important to surrender. Well, the famous CBS News correspondent has been fired after a long tenure. 60 Minutes correspondent Scott Pelley after an explosive confrontation with the program's new leadership. Pelley was terminated Tuesday after clashing with the new executive producer, Nick Bilton. According to a memo reported by Puck, Bilton said Pelley's antipathy to the future of the show was clear and that CBS was ending his employment for cause. The firing reported following an all-staff meeting in which Pelley attacked Bilton's qualifications, attacked the boss, that's always smart, and accused CBS News editor-in-chief Barry Weiss of murdering the program. CBS leadership has reportedly wanted Pelley to stay, but later accused him of rejecting any collaboration and creating a hostile work environment. Scott Pelley fired back, claiming new management was destroying 60 Minutes to curry favor with the Trump administration. Now, there's a joke. Scott Pelley, by the way, is not a journalist. He's a propagandist. He only produces those quote-unquote facts that fit his narrative. The shakeup follows other departures from 60 Minutes, including Sharon Alfonsi, Cecilia Vega, Tanya Simon, and, of course, Anderson Cooper himself. My old friend, my good friend over there at ABC, Sean Hannity, put it best. Journalism is dead in America. While liberals may be shedding crocodile tears over the loss of these establishment media liars, the rest of the public is pretty much applauding. Legacy outlets like 60 Minutes have jettisoned all credibility throughout the years by pushing their virulent anti-Trump narratives and selective outrage powered by elite groupthink. Now, as executives attempt to overhaul a failing culture, the same insiders cast censorship and blame President Trump. Pelley built a long career inside one of the most powerful media institutions in America. It's clear that he very thoughtfully thinks only of himself and not the accuracy of his reporting. I'm Roger Stone. You're listening to Stone Zone, and we'll be right back.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Well, President Donald Trump says his administration is moving to shut down bank accounts used to enable illegal immigration, human smuggling, drug trafficking, welfare fraud, and other cartel activity. Trump points to his May executive order restoring integrity to America's financial systems, which directs the Treasury Department under the leadership of Scott Bessent, one of the president's very best appointees, to warn banks, credit card companies, and financial institutions about illegal use of the U.S. financial system. The order targets accounts tied to non-working authorized populations, unlawful employees, payroll tax evasion, labor trafficking, off-the-books wage payments, and the use of taxpayer identification numbers without verified legal presence. President Trump said access to America's financial system should be limited to those legally present and engaged in lawful commerce. He warned that accounts used to enable illegal immigration or to store welfare benefits received by illegal aliens could be shut down, with funds subject to impoundment or seizure and returned to the taxpayers. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is also directed to consider whether lenders may account for deportation risk and lost wages when evaluating credit applications from non-work authorized borrowers. This is a major step towards enforcing immigration law where it matters: the money trail. Illegal immigration doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It's a financed, thorough, through bank access, labor exploitation, remittances, fraud, and cartel networks. The federal government has turned a blind eye to this pipeline for far too long, too afraid to disrupt a system that works for the corporate elite who employs many of these illegals at lower wages. Trump administration is sending a clear message that those days are over. Donald Trump, once again, keeping his promises, cracking down on illegals, and in this case, cracking down on their illicit use of the American banking system. I'm Roger Stone. You're listening to the Stone Zone, and we'll be right back.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And you're diving headlong back into the deep end of the Stone Zone. Well, leftist terrorists have been sabotaging equipment tied to President Donald Trump's Freedom 250 celebration, which is supposed to take place on the National Mall on July 4th, in an attempt to prevent historic commemoration of Americans' semi-quincentennial. According to Freedom 50 spokeswoman Michelle Reisner, a fuel line connected to a generator for temporary lighting was cut during preparations for a May 17th event. Fuel then seeped into underground cisterns that collect rainwater beneath the mall. Officials said the incident did not affect drinking water, and the site was quickly cleaned up in coordination with the National Park Service. Reisner said Freedom 20 equipment has been repeatedly targeted by leftist terrorists, and that the recent leak was the direct result of tampering. She said organizers take stewardship of the National Mall seriously and are working with law enforcement. The temporary lights were installed ahead of Rededicate 250, a day of prayer and music featuring religious and political figures, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, House Speaker Mike Johnson, and others. Freedom 250 was created by the Trump administration as a public-private partnership to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. Additionally, the concert series that was announced as part of 250 year celebration has been sabotaged as different artists have pulled out of the venue after receiving many death threats. That's how the left rolls. This is exactly what patriotic Americans are up against today. Even a peaceful celebration of Americans' founding faith, and national heritage is a target for violence and extremism. The Interior Department called the sabotage unhinged behavior and said it will not stop the administration's work to beautify and restore the nation's capital. We must continue undeterred while realizing that extremist left is the existential threat to our freedom and must be fully dispatched for our republic to thrive. Meanwhile, American businesses added more jobs than expected in May, more evidence that the big, beautiful bill is doing exactly what it was designed to do. Another sign that the labor market is gaining strength under President Donald Trump's America First economic policies. The ADP research reported that private sector payrolls rose by 122,000 jobs, the biggest increase since January of 2025. Economists had expected an increase of about 120,000. The report follows fresh labor data showing more job openings than expected and a lower level of layoffs, suggesting employers still have strong demand for workers despite high gas prices and uncertainty tied to the Iran war. Hiring was broad-based across the country, with trade, transportation, and utilities adding about 36,000 jobs. Education and health services led the way with 57,000 new jobs. Construction added 8,000, while manufacturing added another 3,000. Professional and business services, finance, and leisure also posted substantial gains. ADP chief economist Nella Richardson said hiring was more broad-based in May than in recent years, and that the labor market continues to show momentum heading into the summer. The numbers point to an economy that is still moving despite the challenges facing us. Things are far from perfect, but as President Trump said recently, we need to just relax and trust the process. Tax cutting and regulatory cuts work. Spending cuts work. Businesses are hiring, workers are finding opportunities, and the private sector is showing real resilience. This is a result of an administration that is instituting reforms that actually help workers. The message is simple: lower taxes, pro-growth policy, energy independence and strength, and confidence in American business remain the path to future prosperity. Meanwhile, the Trump administration is moving to rebuild America's tariff wall with a new round of duties aimed at countries that fail to block goods made with forced labor. The U.S. Trade Representative has proposed tariffs of at least 10% on imports from 60 trading partners, including Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974. Canada, Mexico, the European Union, Taiwan, and the United Kingdom would face 10% tariffs, while China, India, Japan, South Korea, Brazil, and Switzerland would face a higher 12.5% rate. U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer, an enormously capable individual, said it is unacceptable for major trading partners to allow forced labor goods into global markets, forcing American workers to compete on an unfair and unlevel playing field. He said every trading partner must do more to ensure trade does not encourage or entrench forced labor around the world. The proposed follows a Supreme Court ruling that struck down earlier tariffs imposed under emergency powers, forcing the administration to use other legal terms. By the way, the idea that a federal judge can rule that the President of the United States doesn't have the authority to negotiate tariff agreements with other countries is patently absurd. Section 301 requires investigations into unfair trade practices and is viewed as a stronger long-term pathway to getting more quickly to tariffs. The public comments are due July 6th, with hearings beginning on July 7th. This is exactly the fight America should be having. Free trade does not mean slave labor trade. Slave labor is not only morally abhorrent, but it undercuts American workers in our countries so massive globalist corporations can profit. These are policies that gutted our manufacturing sector when they were embraced under the false premise of a broad prosperity that never amounted to a hill of beans. American workers should never be undercut by countries that look the other way while the abusive supply chains produce cheap goods. President Trump is once again using tariffs to defend America, rebuild industry, and put America first. This is exactly what I voted for. This is exactly why he was put into office, and we should steadfastly support the president's moves towards economic patriotism. Meanwhile, a California tech executive had been arrested by federal prosecutors after they accused him of illegally supplying computer software and hardware to Iran for use in military and nuclear programs. Jamshid Jami, a 63-year-old dual Iranian U.S. citizen from Newport Gulf, was taken into his Newport Beach mansion. Was taken from his Newport Beach mansion in handcuffs Wednesday early in the morning. The Justice Department says he's charged with conspiracy to violate the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. Prosecutors allege that Nomi spent more than a decade selling networking security and encryption equipment to Iran, including to the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran and Iran's Ministry of Defense. Authorities say he used intermediaries in the United Arab Emirates and routed hundreds of purchases through eBay and PayPal accounts for his illicit dealings. The DOJ also alleges more than 250 metric tons of network equipment were smuggled into Iran through Dubai between 2014 and 2018. Nomi's company allegedly served as the vehicle for this operation, with annual sales actually topping $10 million, showing just how lucrative his scheme was. Federal authorities say Nomi moved roughly $15 million from Iran into U.S. accounts through shell companies and falsely claimed it was inheritance money. Prosecutors also say he reported very little income while claiming low income tax credits while building a $35 million mansion. The case is exactly why sanction enforcements really matter. The case has to be taken seriously. Iran's military and nuclear machine depends on network of smugglers, profiteers, and others willing to betray America's security for cash. The Trump Justice Department is right to seize assets and charge those who are allegedly responsible. He's making up for lost time caused by other Democratic administrations that appeased the Iranian threat rather than confronting it head on. Meanwhile, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, the administrator, Dr. Mehmet Oz, announced that Trump RX is very quickly expanding, adding 160 more drugs to the prescription price comparison and discount prescriptions available through TrumpRx.com. That's TrumpRx.com, comparing them to more than 750 drugs bought through drugstores. The site allows Americans to compare prices, claim coupons, and search for lower-cost medications before they buy, adding price transparency into a system that is notoriously Byzantine. Oz said that Trump RX now covers roughly 80% of the prescriptions Americans regularly pick up at drugstores. Oz reiterated the economic truth that when consumers can see real prices, they tend to make better decisions and force more cost-efficient competition. This is a truth that has long been lost as our system has become overregulated and dominated by big pharma capture. The announcement comes just weeks after Trump RX began offering about 600 generic drugs. Dr. Oz says the site has been drawing roughly $12 million unique visitors a day, with estimated savings of around $500 million so far, and growing. The program is tied to President Trump's most favored nation's drug pricing deals with major pharmaceutical companies aimed at lowering costs for Americans who have long paid more than patients in other countries. Oz also announced that Medicaid beneficiaries will be able to obtain GLP-1, the weight loss drug, for $50 per month starting July 1st. Normally, this goes for around $300 and $320. This is exactly the right approach that is needed for health care reform, in my opinion. The Trump administration is bringing transparency, bureaucracy, and lower drug prices. President Trump is taking on Big Pharma by giving Americans the information and purchasing power they really need. Lower prices, more choice, and less Washington red tape is all involved. This is exactly what conservatives and folks of common sense have been demanding for generations, and the Trump administration is delivering on this common sense reform. Meanwhile, Secretary of State Marco Rubio forcefully rejected Democrat claims that President Donald Trump considered personal financial interests while making decisions about the recent conflict in Iran. During a House Affairs Committee hearing, Democrat Congressman Gregory Meeks of New York questioned whether Trump's personal stock holdings created a possible conflict of interest. Rubio, who's a fighter, pushed back hard, saying the allegation was completely false. He said he attended nearly all of Trump's foreign policy meetings and has never once heard the president discuss his personal finances in connection with the war, foreign policy, or any public decision. Meeks did not cite any specific stock purchase tied to the Iranian operation, demonstrating once again that his questions were nothing but hot air. The hearings quickly turned combative as Democrats pressed Rubio on Trump's finance, decision-makings, and even his cognitive fitness. These are the same people who had no question whatsoever about Joe Biden. Let's face it, through most of his presidency was a vegetable in diapers and often heavily sedated and locked in the basement. Far-left Congressman Ted Lieu raised questions about President Trump falling asleep in meetings. Funny, Ted, you never asked any questions about Joe Biden, who did that repeatedly. Rubio responded that he's never seen that happen and said that President Trump is indefatigable, working long hours day and night to save his country. Rubio eventually asked whether the hearing was a Foreign Affairs Committee proceeding or whether it was a circus, complaining that lawmakers were making accusations without ever giving him the time to respond. Rubio exposed the Democrats' strategy perfectly, refused to budge to their biased hysterics. When Democrats cannot win the foreign policy argument, they smear President Trump with insinuations of corruption. It's their standard go-to tactic. The president confronted Iran with a position of strength. Democrats responded with gossip, theatrics, and conspiracy theories, not even caring one iota if it hurts national security objectives or puts our troops in danger. Rubio's stunning display showed that the Trump administration is dedicated to keeping America safe, while Democrats focus on partisan theatrics. Meanwhile, Stanford University has reported that a whistleblower provided definitive proof in the form of non-public records showing millions of dollars flowing to Stanford from Chinese state-linked companies, political elites, and entities connected directly to Beijing. Wonder who's paying for the Ivy League colleges of today? Look to the Chinese Communist Party. I'm Roger Stone. You're listening to The Stone Zone, and we'll be right back.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back into the Stone Zone. Well, California Democratic Congressman Jimmy Gonzalez has advanced to California's November general election despite an ongoing House Ethics Committee investigation tied to allegations of personal misconduct. Gomez, who represents California's heavily Democratic 34th District in Los Angeles, secured a place on the ballot despite the fact that there are ongoing reports that he had an extramarital affair involving a congressional aide, a violation of House rules. Now, this is nothing compared to the allegations against Florida Congressman Corey Mills. Corey Mills lied about having a Bronze Star, lied about saving 3 of his comrades in combat during the Iraq War, lied about the financing of his initial campaign for Congress, lied about beating up at least 2 women. One woman called the police. By the time they got there, he had pressured her into changing her stories, but the bruises all over her body told the story. And then, more recently, lied to the President of the United States because he had to get a restraining order issued by a Florida judge to stay away from his second girlfriend. He lied about his wife being a Muslim. He lied about his being converted to Muslimism. He lied about his private business, in which he claimed that he helped get those in danger out of Afghanistan. Corey Mills is a disgrace. The upcoming Ethics Committee report on him guarantees that if he is the Republican nominee for Congress, he will not win the seat. Republicans cannot afford to lose this seat. Corey Mills is one shady character. He lied to the president, told the president that there was no restraining order against him. I posted it online. I wouldn't be shocked to see the president withdraw his endorsement. Corey Mills has $150,000 cash on hand, and God knows where he got that. More recently, he played a guy who I happen to know to be a crackhead to attack me on social media because I've been raising all of these legitimate public questions. If they think I'm going to stop, they're wrong. People in public office like Corey Mills who are corrupt should not be in Congress. But the way to beat him is in the upcoming Florida Democrat primary, because if he's allowed to be the Republican nominee, Republicans will lose this seat. I'm Roger Stone. You're listening to Stone Zone here on the Red Apple Audio Networks. Until we meet again, God bless you and Godspeed.
Thanks for listening to The Stone Zone with Roger Stone. You can hear The Stone Zone with Roger Stone weeknights at 8 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Sacco and Feliz, New York and New Jersey's premier attorneys at law. Their team brings decades of experience across a wide range of practice areas. Whatever life brings, they're your legal team. From everyday matters to complex cases, they've got you covered with the experience you need and the results you want. Because when life gets complicated, they make it simple. SaccoFeliz.com. SACCOFILLAS.com. 2 C's, 2 L's.